What's up YouTube, it's John again, and today will be a hopefully quick update on the E30 M42 Rebuild. So last time we left this on the channel, we just got the engine and transmission installed back into the car, and we were prepping it for its first start. So the preparation was we would take the spark plugs out, spark plug is out of the car, the fuel relay over here removed, and then fuel pump fuse number 11 taken out. So when I went into the car to try to turn the key, I got nothing. And it turns out this wire connector right here was not securely fastened, which did not provide power to the starter, which is needed to crank. So fixed that, was able to crank, and then that allowed me to prime the engine with oil. So priming the engine with oil, because it was cranking, the dash light for the oil went away, which then signaled me to go ahead and put back the spark plugs, fuel relay, and fuel pump fuse back into the car, and then crank it to see if we can catch combustion, and then it'll start. But I kept on cranking it and nothing happened, just kept on turning over. And at the end of that, I smelled a lot of gas, pretty much. And what I found out when I got out of the car was there was a huge gas puddle underneath the car in the garage. So didn't know what that was all about, so I went and did some research, and then that's kind of when all the troubleshooting started. So I went, because the oil leak or the gas leak was like in this area right here, and right here is kind of where the fuel filter is, and the fuel pump is like behind the passenger seat. So I replaced the fuel filter with a new one. That one was a pretty easy job. That didn't fix anything because it still didn't start. We tested the fuel injectors because that was, I guess, my next step. There's a lead right here that plugs into this main wiring harness under the intake manifold, and I tested continuity of all 4 injectors, and all of them tested 12 volts. So that was fine, but that didn't help it start. Next test was to test if I had sparks. So I took out all the spark plugs, laid each one of them on the intake manifold to ground them, so when I cranked it, it would spark, and that happened for all 4 of them. So that wasn't it. So still wasn't able to start, so did a Stomp code test, and I got a 1252, and a 1252 means it's fuel injector number 2, which meant there was not enough continuity or not enough power going to the pulse trigger to spray. But that didn't make sense, because why would it only happen on number 2? So the next test was oh yeah, one other thing. When I put it on the forums, they said that maybe my fuel lines were reversed. So what I did was I went here and I flipped them back, because this, one of them is a supply and one of them is a return. And that's probably why the fuel kind of just kept on going in this loop, and then going back to the fuel filter, and then it just like spewed out there. So that fixed that, but it still didn't start. So the next test was, why don't we just try to crank it with 4 water bottles under each fuel injector to see if anything comes out. I tried that and nothing really sprayed out. It was more like a drip on all 4 fuel injectors. So we didn't think it was the fuel injectors, because they all can't fail the same way at the same time. At least that was the assumption. So I pretty much was stuck at the error 1252, and I needed a friend to crank while I tested the leads. But with the whole COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, everybody was on quarantine lockdown, so I couldn't really get any help in here. So this kind of sat for a month or 2.